Good afternoon, everyone. Let's begin. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Pride Month at York U. Today is day 3 of Artists and Activism Talks presented by SexGen. I am Marvin, your MC for the week, and today we have an exciting presentation from folks at Youth Initiative for Health and Community Empowerment. Also, if you want to catch our previous talks, you can go to yorku.ca/yupride. Before we begin our land acknowledgement, I want to approach it today thinking about the encampment community at Bellwoods Park who just yesterday experienced forceful displacement at the hands of policemen and state actors. I hope that while I offer this, we may draw links and think about tactile, creative, and collective ways to resist systems of oppression, redistribute our resources, and provide adequate housing for all, especially queer, trans, Two-Spirit communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. As this event is virtual, we are not all gathered in the same space. I recognize that this land acknowledgement might not be for the territory that you are currently on. We ask that if this is the case, you take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory you are on and the current treaty holders. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of the university. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Tikaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. From what I understand, this land was appropriated by the British Crown in a series of deceitful treaties, most famously the Toronto Purchase of 1805, which cheated the Mississaugas out of a portion of this land for 10 shillings. What's more, a large portion of Toronto is unceded. For those of us who are settlers on this land, it's our collective responsibility to recognize that we are here because this land is occupied. In recognizing that this space occupies colonized First Nations territories and out of respect for the sovereignty of Indigenous peoples, it is our collective responsibility to learn our colonial histories and their present-day implications and continuities. It is also important to acknowledge that in addition to taking land and sovereignty from Indigenous nations, white settler colonialism is centrally involved in imposing white ways of being and displacing diverse Indigenous ones. These colonial impositions include monogamous heterosexuality, the nuclear family structure, authoritarian, undemocratic, and physically violent means of wielding power between adults and children and between men and women, and the binary gender system. They also include the imposition of capitalism, the racist and classist criminal justice system, including the criminalization of sex work and drugs, the psychiatric system which makes reasonable human suffering into individual pathology, and the practice of strangers deciding whether families and communities are safe for children and then forcibly removing them if the stranger decides that's the best thing for the child. These are all everyday manifestations of ongoing colonialism, which we have a responsibility to both acknowledge and struggle against. Thank you. And with that, I will hand it over to Negan to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Our first speaker is the Executive Director of Youth Initiative for Health and Community Empowerment in Masaka, Uganda. They are a community paralegal, peer educator, and an alumnus of the East African Human Rights Program class of 2021. Professionally, they are a travel consultant with expertise in global distribution system fares and ticketing. Our speaker has worked with through our grassroots organization of LGBTQI and sex workers persons in the greater Masaka region and is passionate about working with the marginalized communities. Please welcome the YIHCOE representative.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I'm so honored to be on this platform in this Pride Week and happy to share with you. Thank you so much for organizers and everyone. I think I'm going to start from what I have to present about today, this week's theme and the Pride theme as well. I won't repeat by introducing myself again. Let me just start with talking about YICO. Our organization, YICO, is a registered community-based non-for-profit organization advocating for access to legal and health service, as well as promotion of the human rights of LGBTQI persons. We are devoted to promoting promoting the control of the spread of HIV in our communities through encouraging LGBTQI members to adhere to medication, as well as raising awareness regarding related STIs. Our community target is the grassroots and rural areas within the Greater Masaka region. We are driven by a vision to see a community where all marginalized persons live healthy, positive, and sustainable lives, as well as holding power. In 2020, the world was struck by a wave of COVID-19 pandemic, followed by the nationwide lockdowns. The effect of this response to the global health crisis are far-reaching and are yet to be fully researched and documented. Unfortunately, most studies and relief package target the urban population, and yet the rural grassroots communities were also hard hit. Unless the LGBTQI community, already struggling with the marginalization from society, this community has challenges with access to health and legal services, among other handicaps. However, the global pandemic presented an opportunity, a chance to empower our community at different levels through a coordinated tailoring project. Yiko Masaka had community members making face masks to bridge the supply of much needed health and safety measures. This project was a powerful bridge between the LGBTQI and the wider society. It provided us with a platform to be involved in solving challenges of the society, as face masks made by the organization were donated to health workers based at health centers, as well as to our partner organizations. The project gave crucial life skills to our community members in form of tailoring and fabric design. These are skills that with the right support can give sustainable financial empowerment. In a very important way, this was a platform for our minority groups to hold conversations within the wider society on health and security matters that affect all of us, regardless of orientations, race, or grade. Furthermore, this was an opportunity for the wider society to acknowledge the existence of the minority groups, and as well as our largely untapped potentials to contribute towards solving the social crisis of the day. In short, this enabled us to fulfill the objectives of YICO Masaka. That was 2020, and we have come a long way to 2021. 2021 has fresh opportunities and challenges. Permit me to start with opportunities. The theme for the year's Pride Month, Art and Activism, Virtual Intimacies, Community Building Through Art, Virtual Expression, is an important point for reflection, assessment, and action. The arts are an important tool that can be used in advocacy and raising awareness about the LGBTQI concerns. Art forms that are mostly popular and readily available to our rural and grassroots communities are music, dance, drama, stroke theatre, and poetry. Such art forms can be powerful tools of communication where inclusive messages are packaged. This would enable a shifter and more friendly, cost-effective, and sustainable means of communicating to the wider society. Music and dance have been proven to have quick absorption among the youth, and historically is an important indispensable tool of advocacy for social change. It was William Shakespeare who wrote the popular saying, "If music be the food of life, play on." This is why to neglect the power of music in particular, and the arts in general, is a self-defeating error on the parts of advocacy forums world over, and especially in the rural setting. It would be ideal for the popular celebrities in the art industry to use their platform to raise awareness. It would be ideal for the regional or continental or global artists to start a conversation about the need for social inclusion of minority groups. It would be ideal for the world famous dance groups to portray the plight and potential of minority groups. It would be ideal for famous actors and actresses to portray the basic humanity of the minority groups, and that's combat social prejudice. It would be ideal for the social icons to use their voices to drive social change. Ladies and gentlemen and others, all this would be ideal, but let's face the music. Forgive the pun. This is a dream at best. Most of their famous names are more focused on the business aspects of their voice and the threat of potential backlash, real or imagined, that such advocacy would bring to them. This is much worse in a ultra-conservative societies like my country, Uganda, where tension rise when punitive legislation is fronted by prejudiced politicians. In such an environment, even the best, most desiring artists face a stronghold. What then should the way forward be? What should be the long-term strategy? Well, we should set our sights lower. We should consider raising our own talents. We should consider supporting youth who are talented and guiding them forward to the path of stardom. These youth need not to out themselves. They would only be part of the broader voice for advocacy. Also, when we focus on strategies of raising our own talents in arts, we have a chance to contribute powerfully to the conversation of inclusion and diversity within the performing arts. A famous musical role model is Sir Elton John's. Such success stories can be replicated world over. Not only in Great Britain, such success stories would not be a novelty, especially in grassroots communities. Their effectiveness is being witnessed in parts of the Western world, where gifted youth are supported to become financial independent. The, the wider community of minorities stands to benefit from a widened pool of individuals that can contribute financially towards solving the pressing issues of minority groups. This therefore leads to the financial independence of individuals in a short run and the sustainability of community projects in the long run. Furthermore, beyond advocacy, the performing arts can be a source of income to our community members, hence giving financial independence to minority groups who are usually excluded from the financial systems of the wider society through biased social perceptions and unjust legislation. I will share with you the story of Helen, not her real name. This is a lesbian in our country. She was a passionate professional, setting her sights on raising within her line of work. That was until she was outed with a that was until when she was outed with a disgruntled community protesting her sexual orientation, with no more than a handful of friends and a sprinkling of families to support her. Helen swiftly lost her reputation and standing. It was not so long afterwards that her employer decided Helen was no longer welcome. She was bad for the PR image. Helen was dismissed from work. Now, under the Ugandan labor laws, this was illegal. But where could she get help or legal support? And where could she access much needed psychosocial support? As Yuko, we came in to help her, to shield her from the unwanted attacks. We provided support, scattered though it was, to an otherwise sinking individual. I'm proud to say that Helen was able to weather the storm. Not so many individuals get that luck. Stories of many LGBTQI members who have lost their lives to hate attacks abound in many parts of the world. But Helen and many like her need more than just escaping from the skin of their teeth. They also need to be supported to escape the hangman of systematic prejudice. They need to survive the pandemic of financial exclusion. They need to survive financially so that their dignity as members of the broader human family is restored. And this is where the performing arts comes in, where there is sufficient support for Helens of our parts of the world, there remains a fighting chance for those who are financially excluded to restore their dignity, and more than that, to contribute to the progress of their communities. This is what we should be focusing on. This is what our international partners need to consider, helping us to accomplish. What we can do as a community is to help in developing talents and putting in place projects that can help our communities to be inspired to the coming generation, to be inspiration of the coming generation. An inspiration that, regardless of the sexual orientation, they can contribute powerfully to the national building as well as to the progress of the global community. Arts can also empower our communities so that we can influence change and claim our rights as LGBTQI persons, hence influencing transformation and acceptance by the general public. The opportunity for us in arts and activism, virtual intimacies, community building through art, virtual expression is far broader than I can be fully explored here. However, alongside the opportunities, it is also prudent to weigh in on potential challenges ahead. As a community-based organization, YICO anticipates the following challenges. First is the Sexual Offense Bill. This is a wider shifting legislation in Uganda that is partly a veiled attempt to restore a illogical criminalization of sexual minorities. It re-echoes the notorious Bahati Bill 2009. This is the challenge. As the legislation, if passed into law, can be selectively used to target our communities, there would be no means for us to express ourselves through art, and activism would be virtually criminalized. Furthermore, this bill can target the vulnerable communities by breaching the sexuality and privacy of sexual minorities, both in their physical residence as well as in the virtual world. Through the Ugandan Communication Commission, government would be able to restrict our conversation and interactions online. This ability has been demonstrated before, most recent in the recent concluded general elections, where the government of Uganda switched off access to social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, among others. The second potential challenge is the limited access to connectivity to the internet grid. In the post-COVID era, performers have had to go virtual, from art exhibition to music performance. The virtual world has remained the most feasible platform in spite of its localized challenges and limitations. If the theme of this year is to guide our reflection and education and educate our actions, then we must tackle the problem of an important section of minorities who have limited to no connection to the internet grid. As a community organization based in a rural area, we are especially selective to this challenge. The penetration of the internet into rural and pre-urban areas of much of Africa is still limited. That aside, there are a set of prohibitive fees charges attached to accessing the internet in Uganda. The over-the-top tax was introduced officially to raise contribution to national taxes, but on the ground it is known among the common people that the tax was introduced to limit access to internet platforms. Statistics indicate that in the first 6 months following the introduction of this tax, access and use of the internet dropped by over 30%. And the number keeps on dropping. This state-led restriction of the civic space has affected the right to information, the freedom of speech and expression, not only among disenfranchised politicians, but also the sexual minorities. Many of these are already financially excluded, and such fees increase the restriction to their ability to converse and interact across the internet. Related to this is the high cost of communication facilities and gadgets. Virtual intimacies, community building through art and virtual expression necessarily assumes access and use of specialized gadgetry. The reality of the matter is that laptops, desktop computers, microphones, cameras, data boosters, Wi-Fi gadgets, and others are costly. This is much more especially to the rural and pre-urban communities, like the one which our organization serves. This high cost results in a very real challenge to virtual intimacies, virtual expressions, and building of networks across distant but related communities. Several youth are talented with the ability to create. Several youth are talented with the ability to create diverse forms of arts. They are only limited by inability to broadcast these art forms owing to lack of access to gadgets. The challenge is made even sharper and more painful, where community workers and social support personnel are unable to access these facilities. It is a side effect of the systematic financial exclusion of sexual minorities from the privileges enjoyed by the wider society. On this matter, our organization, YICO, invites the support of our international partners to aid us in the access to gadgetry and facilities. Kindly feel free to support us through donations and financial grants. Another challenge is the over-politicization of the arts. A study trend in our parts of the world is that certain politicians try to gain extra political capital and marriage by targeting sexual minorities. The arts industry has proven a vigorous battleground for this unwanted political tension. Most of you have heard of the most popular opposition politicians in Uganda currently, Bob Wine. He also happens to be a successful musician in the months leading up to the recent concluded general elections. The sitting politicians of the ruling party tried to stop popular support against Bob Wine by playing identify politics. They claimed that he was being funded by the LGBTQI organizations, although this was intended to make him lose his popularity among highly conservative supporters. It also exposed the sexual minority groups to unfavorable public opinions. The electioneering hearing is over, but the far-reaching effects of such underhanded identity politics is not over. Furthermore, this approach affects the ability of the sexual minorities to express themselves through art. For instance, where music or dance or theater is perceived to be contrary to the bias or prejudice of a popular politician, the matter will be politicized, leading to the song being censored. In recent times, much like the story of Helen's above, several members of our community have been targeted, with some of them having their bank accounts frozen by the government of Uganda. Some Opio and others are famous human rights defenders who were wrongfully arrested over this identify politics. This is a challenge that we must anticipate and prepare to overcome. The last challenge that I will highlight is the matter of insensitivity facing the sexual minorities. Sometimes the social media accounts are hacked, leading to a breach of privacy of individuals. Additionally, there are periodic acts of harassment by security agencies who are always on the lookout for individuals and organizations that participate in such conversations, conferences, and activities. Security agencies have been known to raid offices and harass staff, volunteers, and members that are coordinated by our organizations. Unfortunately, these acts by the government security agencies, who largely go unpunished, end up in emboldening common thugs. In March 2021, our own offices were blocked into by what appears to be common thugs. They made off with virtually all our properties. Why they are emboldened in is that they are aware that the police is not keen on helping organizations like ours who support sexual minorities. So we are setting ducks. In case you still ask why this is a challenge, I will answer you frankly. In the March break-in, we lost 2 sewing machines, which have been instrumental in equipping our members with hands-on skills for fashion and fabric design. These were the equipment that were useful in 2020. When we made face masks in our effort to contribute to the fight against COVID-19, the break-in also cost us our laptop, the only computer that our organization was using for coordinating activities and storing records. The loss of this laptop has left us severely handicapped and in a very ironic sense made us incapable of participating in the theme of community building through art and virtual expressions. It is for this purpose that we are resolved to urgently relocate our premises to a more secure location, for which we request all well-wishers and partners to support us. In conclusion, these challenges are real, but they are not insurmountable. Our shared passion towards arts and activism, virtual intimacies, community building through art and virtual expressions are a passion that can empower us to work together across borders, across race, across ages, across time zones, across grade, towards achieving the amazing potential in this theme. Yes, I'll be finishing soon. There is a need for our international partners to support us through considering grants and scholarship for members of the sexual minority groups to access education. Due to being ostracized by the community, many of our members helped by organizations get disowned by their parents, and this means their education stops immediately. The dropouts from the education system face many challenges. Our various assessment of the situation keeps bringing us to the same conclusion. The solution is for unfortunate individuals to be reintroduced into the school system so that they can get quality education that empowers them and hold power. This means tuition fees, upkeep, scholastic materials, boarding fees, or transportation for commuting, among others. We have assessed that as Canada provides scholarship for education to people around the world, it would be very helpful if the portion of scholarship can be deducted to the sexual minority individuals in a great need. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your kind attention. Yes. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you. We have some questions over here. If you don't mind, I will go ahead and start with the questions.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what is the history of your organization? What is the history of YIHCOE?
As in why it was started, what was founded, or in that line? Oh, okay. Yes, YICO. It is YICO. YICO is just an acronym. It is Youth Initiative for Health and Community Empowerment in Masaka. This organization, at first, Uganda is known compared to be the capital city of Uganda. So initially they were not like giving support to the people from the rural areas. So they used to come, some organizations from Kampala to come to Masaka to bring services to us, health services, legal help, but they had specific projects. So when the project ends, they stop from there. Then the burden remains to you who are in that area, what you face in the health system, getting the consumables, getting the legal. The police was also violating the transgender persons. So the problem was actually to us. So we decided to see, by that time I was actually young, that was 2015. 2015, that's when actually I came into the so-called activism. That was still a student. But in 2016, that's when we realized that we have a lot of challenges due to these people who just used to come and then go. We decided to have a group at first, we like that, to care for our needs, specifically for health, because we are facing a lot of stigma and discrimination when it comes to health. So when we used to go to the Tasso Massacre, which is in Tasso Massacre, the AIDS support organization, they had some grants that could cater for us. And actually, when we went to them and they acknowledged that the community is there, that we exist, they tried to give us some services as the people from Masaka. So then we realized that also, apart from health services, we also have some other needs as people. As LGBTQI person, we need to see beyond the brackets and see what we need. Despite that, also the mental health systems, people are depressed, people are just from home, some are school dropouts. So with all those challenges, we need to come together and form a group, which in 2016, in December, it came to be an organization to see that we can work on ourselves and see how we can be there, how we can get access to health services, to the legal, yes, how we can speak up for ourselves in rural areas especially. And we also work within the neighboring districts within still Masaka as a Masaka region, because it is big. because those organizations from Kampala, they just come with specific grants and projects. When they hint, they go, and they can't give also help to when they can't actually give help when it's needed. That's when we came up with DICO.
As someone who comes from a country that has so much discrimination against LGBTQI people, I know I would have loved it if I had something like your community to help us LGBTQI people back home. Thankfully, I'm over here and there's more help. And that's where my next question comes in. What do you think are the best ways for us and for the global community to help this organization and similar organizations around the world? Maybe we can create more organizations just like you to help more LGBTQI people. What do you think are the best ways?
My best ways could be that maybe we should also, as the global, we should focus so much on the grassroots communities. And also, what I would prefer is also for donors actually to come on ground, to make assessment and see exactly what's going on. Because as DICO, we have tried so much to access some grants, but I will tell you that we don't always succeed. However much also some other the people may be who may be interested, because we got a chance that we were visited by Voice people. I think you know Voice, or have heard of Voice. And Voice team introduced us to Canada Fund for Local Initiative. I think you have ever heard of it. But also they would like to fund, by they're saying that since we're an organization that has never got any funding, they're not okay to give that financial support, like to help the organization to come out. Like, when you have never got a fund, you need to do finance things, to be systematic, everything needs you get my point. You need to work on everything. So it is the donors are not okay. Some donors are not okay to give that really support that is needed, so that you can access some other grants. But I think the donors should focus so much on grassroots and should make assessments, should actually come on ground and find out what's really going on. That's what I could recommend. Also, to unite globally, to see that we can see how we can help our community around the world within the LGBTQI person. Because as much as we are facing a lot of challenges, it's not only us. I believe that people are facing a lot of challenges, and especially when you are a marginalized person or you identify as a trans person, actually it is worse. So I should consider our donors to unite and come on ground and assess.
So where can we donate actually? Do you have a link or some place that we can actually donate or help and promote it?
What I can say now, we don't have. I tried to create a giving away account, but it didn't make anything. So we decided currently we just have a bank account made for the organization. If someone wills to donate there, he can donate. And the fact that this time around 2020, it wasn't a good year for us because we had got space of those. We had some people like donors who gave us those sewing machines that saw about our work and were like, we can just really help these people. But unfortunately, those things were stolen. And that was because during that, when COVID was so much, even now it's still much, but we had some things to support also within the members to sit, and because people are going through a lot of things. But this time now we cannot, because everything we had, it was taken away by those people, by thieves. And the government of Uganda, even if you go to police, they can't work on us. They just discourage us and just leave them and look into other ways and see how we can do.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. We will be happy to help and promote if there is a way for donations in the future. And actually, it brings up my next question. You mentioned COVID and how hard it has been to get donations and get access to the global community most of the time. What are your ways of staying energized in these difficult times? Do you have any art practices? And how do you manage your time in these difficult conditions and time with COVID and everything? Has it changed a lot of your practices? Do you have any new tips that you can give to even us who are dealing with COVID here ourselves as well?
I think what currently I wouldn't say that we have anything, because recently we had some space where we could sit and we could actually every week we could meet with members, because we had that free space that people could come. We discuss. We could have some teas. Those who are depressed, talking to people, like as well as we are making face masks, because we had those sewing machines. We used to make some masks, and we could donate to the entire community. And in that way, we could also change the mindset of people and how people look at us and what they think about the LGBTI community. But since we got the breaking in, nothing as we were trying to see how those who can help us so that we can replace some of the things, if we can get some other measures. Basically, what we do is to talk through via WhatsApp groups, to check on them, to see actually how they are. But meeting is limited. We cannot meet now. We just talk on phone, unless if someone's having something, an emergency, unless we go to the health facilities, and we don't converge in large numbers. We just meet like maybe 2 to 4. Yeah, that's how it is. But we're looking forward, maybe with time we should think of getting a space where we can meet and talk our issues and help those who need the psychosocial support, because these are difficult times now.
You mentioned during your answer and also in your talk how the government is trying to control the internet, and it's trying to restrict it more than it was before. How important do you think the free access to internet is important to your community and LGBTQI community in general in Uganda?
Okay. I think even this time as of COVID now, we are using internet to communicate to our people. Because now you can just go on WhatsApp, we have this Facebook, we just keep on encouraging people. If it's going through difficult times, we keep in touch via internet, via communication, because now we can't meet. And it's worse that this government of Uganda actually, recently, they had politicized everything. Even if they were assuming that the LGBT organizations are funding, and there were a lot of homophobic attacks. I remember even they killed some transgender persons. So the hate was too much. It was now removed from politicians. Then they were targeting the community as well. That if people are finding this and this, so it was too much. So if you can't meet, or as in, if in places we can't get time to meet, on media we can talk. You can at least talk to a friend, and you can also plan to see a secure place where you can meet with that person, where you know that it starts from the media. But if you find someone, and you can't also find someone just on the ground, because everyone is worried, if people find out who I am, what will come back to me, what will be the consequences. So that's why it is actually very hard. What we do is just internet helps us so much, because even right now where you can't meet, the internet works. We talk on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, even Zoom meetings like the one I'm on now. Because since if you can't meet with people, you can just schedule. If something is emergency and we need to talk as a group, as a community, we can just set up a Zoom and communicate. Yeah, I think internet is so important. Also to get someone to also see that there is this call, you can apply, there is this and this, what's going on within the community. It's all about rotating with internet. If you don't have internet, you can't access.
That's completely understandable. Again, with what happens back home for me as well, I know how crucial it is to have good and free internet access, especially during these times. And once the government is trying to restrict the internet use, it can get very hard, especially for marginalized communities to communicate with one another. I thank you very much for your talk and for your answers.
Oh,
It's been great. Do you
yes,
have any final notes?
yeah. What I wanted to say is also like the music part of it with music and theater and drama. Actually, it can give an impact to the community, especially here in Uganda. Because me, what I don't my perception, what I think is, if we go into music and acting, nowadays these people that we're making awareness with these soaps that always show on TVs, because now people can get some information. I think if we venture into music, we can make a big impact. Also, because some people, if a person known, a celebrity comes out and talks about anything, he may not say that I'm with this community, but mere talking about it, it can bring some change. And we can also use that music platform where we can bring our we can make our advocacy within the community. Yes, actually, this year's theme is so good. I think we can try to boost on it and see how best we can do as a group, global, and change things for the good of our advocacy and for the coming generation to change.
Yes, for sure. Music is one way to bring everyone together. Thank you so much for your answers, your talk, and your final note. I will now pass the platform to Marvin so that they can introduce our next speaker.
Oh, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Negan, and thank you, Yuko, for the wonderful presentation today. I will now bring up Karen, who will introduce us to Alex, our next speaker. Karen, thank you.
Karen, you're on mute.
Marvin, I'm sorry. Thank you, Marvin. And I think that's going to be on my tombstone. My name is Karen Hartke. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm part of the queer counseling staff at York's Student Counseling, Health and Wellbeing, our campus student mental health services. I'm excited today to have the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Alex Rivers. Excited that much more that after reading their bio, I understand their interests and work is in the area of mental health. So I will shift now to introducing Alex by reading their bio they provided us, after which I'll pass it over to them. Alex Rivers is a Chilean-born adoptee raised in Canada by a middle-class white family. They have worked with marginalized and racialized and LGBTQIA 2+ youth through being a peer support worker and public speaker. Alex is a person of color, gender fluid, queer, mentally ill, and disabled youth who fights for marginalized communities to have the same opportunities as non-marginalized communities. They currently volunteer with Youth Assisting Youth as a peer mentor, with TRIP as a peer support for youth who use drugs and who are part of the partying scene of Toronto, and is a member of the Toronto Youth Cabinet in the transportation sector. They express an interest in both psychology and social justice and change, and plans to go into school to be a social worker in the nearby future. Their pronouns are they, them. I understand that there will be a Q&A after the presentation, so I'll see you then. I'll pass it now over to our next speaker, Alex Rivers.
Hello. as you know now, I'm Alex Rivers. I'm a youth living in Toronto. So I actually have a lot to say on Pride and like being a youth in general while being queer. So I'd like to start with saying how the life in Toronto is really diverse and multicultural. So it's a shame because I feel like we as a community need to keep fighting to keep it as such, as a lot of the gentrification of the city is happening even faster because of COVID, and due to its multiculturalism, we need to be able to like include everyone. And as somebody who, as was previously said, is disabled, chronically ill, mentally ill, queer, and a person of color, I feel that I embody at least some of the diversity that is in the city. Unfortunately, with Pride Month, a lot can come up with like emotions and, you know, people trying to connect to each other in the community. Recently, unfortunately, there was a brutal beating of a gay man in the Toronto Islands, which I believe was a few weeks ago. And it was really hard to hear and hard to read, especially during Pride Month more specifically, that this hate has taken place in our community. And I feel that as though as a community, we need to stand together against hate and say it has no place in our community. As sorry, as it's Pride Month, people have also said it's Pride Wrath Month because of all the discrimination a lot of people in the city do face, and it really does need to be addressed as a community. We need the help of the community and allies to stand up with us and for us. So this is my call to action to you guys, is being able to help us as queer people stand up for our rights as human beings and our rights to having the same services as other people. What I tend to actually discuss a lot with my friends and other people is being able to use your own privilege to help other people. As somebody who doesn't have a lot of privilege in this society, I very clearly have to communicate with people on that and showing them their own privilege and how they can, you know, help the community with their own things. To be honest, people just need to show that they do care about us. It's not too hard, but it does need to happen for our community to feel more together. And let's see. This is my push for inclusivity of all, whether it be people of color or disabled people, mentally ill, queer, anyone in any type of marginalized communities in general, to be included in everything, whether it be Pride itself or buildings or other programming and stuff in the community. And because some people aren't even aware of this, the push for inclusivity is even greater, so that everyone is allowed to participate in what they want to enjoy in their own community. So I wanted to talk a bit about accessibility in Pride specifically. Prior to the plague happening, unfortunately, due to myself being disabled, I wasn't able to actually join in on a lot of like the Pride events, unfortunately. So like the Pride walks, the events in the village itself, and being able to try and even get into restaurants and stuff was a big problem because I usually use a wheelchair. I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. So in big events like this, I need that support to be able to just kind of, you know, use the same things as other people. And people need to be so much more aware of this so that they can then help include us into what should be for all, right? Yeah. So on the, well, I guess it's a good and bad side, post-plague, I found that there has been more opportunity for me to be able to connect to my community, as well as be a part of various events such as this, and be a part of more speaking and community-based things. So because of the plague, the programs and services within the city needed to be more accessible and adaptable. And due to this, for example, I've been able to go to school. And that in itself has changed my life for the better. And I feel as though services in general should be adaptable and accessible for all. It should have happened way before this pandemic, obviously, but it's at least good that it's here now, right? Let's see. For me, due to having ADHD, object permanence and people permanence is quite a big need for me. So after the plague happened, I realized how much I need to see people like in person, face to face. And it's been really hard for me to try and connect online, even if it is a lot more accessible, because for me, I need to know that there's like somebody behind that screen, right? So for example, yesterday, I just met my counselor who I've had since like mid-January. So somebody who's so like close to you and somebody who knows a lot of your deepest thoughts and feelings, not actually knowing them in person was a bit of a struggle. But thankfully, things are starting to open up, and I only hope to work with her more because she seemed to be pretty awesome, to be honest. Let's see. Due to the plague, people are only now becoming more aware of their social location and the inequities in the city of Canada and of Canada. So I noticed this the other day. Actually, this was in the news. They're bringing forth legislation to put in a disability benefit for all Canadians, whether it be people who are on a federal level or provincial level. It would not affect that. So hopefully they heard us, and I truly just want the quality of life of people who are disabled and queer to just get better, right? That's all I really want for my community. Let's see. Yeah. Although also on the bright side, because of COVID, there's been a lot more like food initiatives and things like that in the community that I wasn't able to access prior to this. So now I have a food bank that I can actually get food from, which is really, really nice, especially being on ODSP and being far below the poverty line, like far below even halfway to the poverty line. So yeah. Let's see. For me, as we're kind of more focused on youth today, I wanted to talk a little bit about growing up in Burlington. Now, if anyone knows Burlington, it's a very, let's say, white city. I jokingly call it white bread Canada. And unfortunately, because of like the lack of diversity there, I was never given the proper support that I needed to feel included in the community and grow up feeling safe and happy. So part of that also comes into like my intersectionality of being of color. And considering most of the students in Burlington and in my schools were white people, they didn't have the same struggles that I did growing up and feeling included in what should be inclusion for everyone. So for me, in Burlington, there was a few people that genuinely helped, and I wanted to give them a bit of credit here. For example, my grade 11 teacher, Miss Kennedy, was lovely, and I actually came out to her first, being queer, and I was just learning about my mental illnesses and like how to work with them, and she was genuinely one of the most supportive people in that process for me, and like I can't forget her kindness for that. And all you really need to do is be there for them, be there for queer youth, be there for people who are marginalized. You just need to listen to them, and they'll tell you what they need, they'll tell you what they want. And sorry, it was just so sweet that she actually cared enough to like ask me how I was doing. And the day of my birthday, when I turned 18, I changed my name on the attendance, and she was the first one to celebrate it with me. So that made a really big difference in feeling less alone growing up. And other people need to be like that. Just listen. Sorry, it brings back some hard memories for me. For me, I had some support with the LGBTQ youth Halton group. Unfortunately, though, I didn't have much access to it due to it traveling around Halton. So I was on my own pretty well from age 13 and trying to go places myself. So unfortunately, if they were hosting in like Oakville or other places, I wasn't able to go that month, right? So I was missing out on my community, and like the only community that seemed to understand and like understand that I wanted to be included and be actually included in things. Unfortunately, though, in Burlington, there wasn't much help or support for people like me. I did try to reach out to the community and be like, hey, something's wrong, I need help. But unfortunately, my family or parents decided that no, I wasn't mentally ill. I wasn't queer. I wasn't someone who was different in any way. So trying to communicate to them that I knew something was wrong and that I wasn't straight and I wasn't hetero in any way, shape, or form, they didn't listen. Again, with the whole, you need to listen to youth to understand what they want, and they'll very clearly tell you if you actually open your ears. Let's see, sorry, I have my notes on the side. So as somebody who is an LGBTQ youth, people may ask me like how they can be more supportive to the community and us. So again, all you have to do is listen to them and actually hear what they say, and then help them get connected to the support that they need so that they no longer feel so alone. You should also let them know that they aren't alone and show them more like queer representation in media or people of color in media, so they also feel a lot less alone. Often I'm actually asked like what advice I would give to my younger queer self, and my answer to that would be, once you get the supports out there, that it's going to get so much better. When you have the right people around you that want you to grow and thrive, they are going to be there for you. Let's see. Okay, so this was another thing I was thinking of, especially this year. Unfortunately, this year I turned 24. So as somebody who's still classified as a youth, I'm now moving on to an older youth classification. So youth by federal standards is 29 and under. But now since I'm 24 and I'm turning 25 next year, a lot of the services that I now use will be cut from me. which in of itself is terrifying to think of. But where can I go from there? Honestly, where can I go from there? There's no connection over to older youth programming in a lot of ways. And I'm genuinely scared for the lack of help that I'm going to receive past the age of 25. Yes, there are services for people on 29 and under, but they're a little bit less frequent and they're a little bit less helpful, as society seems to have this idea that you have to have your life together by 25. And with my friends and my chosen family, everyone is in way different places in their life, especially around this age group. Like, I have friends who are having children. I have friends who have gotten married. I have friends who are still living at home. So this is a crazy time for me, not gonna lie. So I actually turned to my healthcare providers and some of my workers and was like, hey, what can I do now that I'm turning 24 and I'm going to be 25 next year? What services can I have and what I can, still access in the city? I'm going to have to look into that this year, but, it's going to be a little bit of a dig. Anywho, as somebody who has been queer for a very long portion of my life, I wanted to talk about some of the struggles youth encounter when it comes to like social services and healthcare, for example. As somebody who is of a lot of intersectionalities, I unfortunately have been denied help many a time, and it's just so exclusionary and sad, really, that like I don't feel as connected as I probably should be to my community. There's been times where I've been straight up denied services because I'm queer. You may think that doesn't happen in Toronto, but oh boy, it does. Also, being young and disabled is another point I wanted to kind of bring into this. Is I've been also denied services because of that, ageism and ableism. And literally just the other day, I went to the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, where I take physical therapy and I work with a naturopath there. Recently, I was able to get onto Wheel-Trans, but on a conditional term or whatever. So I was able to be dropped off at the accessible entrance. Now, the way to get in is two ways. You can push the button that calls the front desk, or you push a button that's kind of like a doorbell, so people who are in the building in the basement can actually access and like open the door for you. Unfortunately for me, the front desk person was the one who decided to answer first. And he's like, yeah. I said, hey, I'm here for my appointment. I'd like to, get in, please. He's like, well, I don't see any wheels. And I was just like, first of all, rude. Second of all, I'm tired and disabled and I'm not walking up those stairs covered in rainwater. No, thank you. And he said something really rude and sarcastic afterwards, but I stopped listening at that point because I just wanted to get into my appointment. But like, if you see these kinds of things in the community happening around you, please step in and help, because it's honestly really sad to see all the discrimination that happens all the time, and especially for queer disabled youth who need to be protected at all costs. So yeah, if you see anything, please do something about it. Honestly, that's all we ask, is just do something. Let's see. Thankfully though, after years of being in the community and being connected to the other parts of the queer community and healthcare in the city, I've been able to grow and become a better version of myself in the past 4 years, despite my disability getting much worse. I wanted to say, like, it was hard to get there, and I had to fight tooth and nail to be able to get any of the services that I have now. And part of the problem was because I'm queer, and that shouldn't be a problem, obviously. So we need, as a community, to work on that, right? Let's see. Basically, my main message here would be, like, treat others as human beings, regardless of their differences. And discrimination in general, as a community, we need to step in and stop it from happening. You know, it's really upsetting to see it. And we need to truly make an effort to include everyone, encompassing literally everyone, despite their intersectionality and all of that. Let's see. I actually wanted to touch on the new Pride flag too this year. The flag that has the black, brown, and then the rest of the rainbow flag. As somebody of color, it's nice to see the representation, but it's not enough to just see the representation. Something needs to be done to include us into queer activities, queer community events. We aren't always welcome, unfortunately. Despite, like, Pride being an event supposed to be for everyone, it's not, unfortunately. And somebody who's of color like me doesn't always feel comfortable in the same spaces white people hold, unfortunately. And again, we need to make that effort to really include everyone. So I do appreciate the flag for adding that diversity, but again, more needs to be done than just visual representation that we have different struggles. Actually, what else I wanted to touch on a bit was I'm trying to start up working more in the public speaking sector, inclusivity advisor roles, and like workshopping roles in the community. As somebody who is so diverse and has so many intersectionalities, I feel as though I can give a fair amount of information and help to people who ask. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm actually working on a website right now to just kind of put my name out there. But if anyone would like to talk to me or otherwise, please email me at alexcrivers@outlook.com and we can get in touch. I also like to make community pamphlets, I guess you could call them, as with Pivot in earlier this year. I was a part of a project where we made a Toronto youth resource guide, and I wanted to share it with the community as much as possible. So if anyone would be interested in something like that, please let me know as well. Yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to cover. So if anybody would like to ask any questions, please feel free to do so.
Hi, Alex. Maybe I'll shift it over and join you in this Q&A if that's okay, because we do have some questions for you. But before I do that, to just to show my appreciation for you sharing your story, your work, and your activism today with us, what really struck me was how lonely it can get, how alone one can feel as being part of our community's youth, and the energy that it takes when you're not sort of invited in.
Yeah,
you have to kind of really bang on the door.
Maybe kick it down sometimes
too. So thank you. And you're right, actually, when you said, you often get, what ways can we support youth best? And I think you mentioned listen, provide support, reach out. And I'm wondering, maybe I'll ask the first question. We have students come on to campus, sort of first year students, and part of our community. What could we do that might support them the best? Or your thoughts around just coming onto this big campus? What do you think we might do as an institution to welcome them, to have them not have to kick down the door? I'm just wondering your thoughts around that.
That's a good question. I'd have to say, like, not just showing inclusivity and like showing the flag, but genuinely inviting us in and specifically saying this is a safe space for everyone. Anyone and everyone who's queer is safe here. And as somebody who did go to college the first time and didn't have the best experience ever, I can definitely say that having some type of, whether it be programming for queers to connect to other queers, or queers to connect to counselors or people who may understand them better, would be really important, especially if it's a counselor that can understand the intersectionality and the struggle in that. As I said before, a lot of times people who are in positions of power don't quite understand this, and they say that they care, but they're not showing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really does need to change in almost everything. So yeah, that's at least some of my input on that one.
So put some action behind the intent. Yeah, and I think it is so important that discrimination on all those levels of intersectionality. We know now, it just came out across my listserv, a study that says homophobic comments and discrimination against our community causes stress levels that will lead to ill health. So your work is amazing right now. I mean, we knew that, right?
Thanks.
But now we have to it. If I can go over to someone was asking and is quite interested in the artwork or posters in the back. Sure, and wondering how you connect with them, and have they taken on new meaning during COVID?
My posters, or
I think just the image that you have behind you. Yeah.
Well, this is my wall of anime and gaming posters, majority of them being from actual artists in the community, which I support local artists. Hello. This one more specifically is from an anime called Ouran High School Host Club. And essentially the storyline is this one girl who doesn't care if people see her as a boy or a girl, essentially non-binary. She gets a scholarship to this high elite class school, and she unfortunately breaks a really expensive vase that they were going to put up for auction, and she ends up being forced into this group called the Host Club. And essentially these guys up here I guess are like on camera sweethearts, if you will, for other people, and like they go out of their way to talk and be all like flirty. But what I really appreciated about this anime in particular is that the main character genuinely said, I don't care like what you see me as long as I'm included. So it ties into this pretty well, I'd say.
Right, beautiful. Really to not need to break down doors, but rather to be invited in.
Yeah.
And it also struck me through the sharing of your story that simple kindness, like the teacher that you talked about, what an impact that can make.
Yeah.
To be kind, to listen, and to hold. And that kind of goes maybe into another question if we have a moment, that other speakers have spoken about chosen family and how we create that. Particularly, I heard some stories how people during the pandemic, some youth, some younger folks had to go back home, and they had to kind of go back in the closet and lost their chosen family, the ones that support and love and where they feel safe in. So wondering your thoughts about how do you create that, the chosen family? Any tips?
Oh, I, as somebody whose family didn't quite want to understand them or even acknowledge that I'm queer, I too had to hide a lot of who I am to the people who called themselves my parents, hence the quotations. So growing up and being able to be a part of Toronto for the past like 6 years in the community, I found my chosen family. And unfortunately, they aren't who I was given to originally. Just to put it lightly on that one. The chosen family that I have truly support who I am, what I'm about, what I do. And it's just really hard to find it sometimes, especially when you feel so isolated and alone. But sometimes truly just reaching out and asking for the help, you may actually get the help. And that's actually how I kind of built my chosen family in Toronto, is actually through a lot of the programs that I do in the city, a lot of the volunteer work that I've done, a lot of public speaking, a lot of things like that have kind of added into my chosen family. And it's just, you know, it's hard to talk about these things for me, especially with growing up in such a not accepting environment and finally able to be myself after so long. It took a long time to build the family that I have. And I even went through all the trouble of legally changing my name in full, including last name, so that I was no longer associated with that family that essentially bought me. So yeah, my input of that.
Thank you. Thank you. So what I think I heard there, Alex, was that reach out to supports that might be there, because that could fill some spaces that we need, and to particularly that support around. I'm noticing the time a little bit. There was a question around Zoom. I know we heard too that and I'm really struck by you not only talking about your challenges, but also what you have found helpful, your successes, your victories, and even around COVID that you said, well, one of the benefits was that people can connect a little bit easier, maybe that they couldn't connect before. Zoom burnout. Any tips?
For me, I can't say too much on the Zoom burnout because like I do suffer from that as well. As I said, I prefer people interaction, face-to-face interaction. Again, with ADHD and object permanence, is like you need to physically see the thing to know that it's there, or else your brain will forget it. So the burnout part, I take a lot of breaks in between like my classes to other things that I do. I like literally shut off my laptop and either cook some food for myself or take a little nap or do some mindfulness practice, or as recently I've been coloring. So like literally just kind of stepping off, like just getting away from screens for, even if it's for like 10 minutes and you walk outside. Honestly, that helps so much, especially with like the the burnout Zoom can definitely have on people. Yeah, just remind yourself that there's a world outside of Zoom, essentially.
Thank you so much, because it is, we quickly, sort of the day goes by, we find ourselves on Zoom, and I know that the youth that are connecting with this session today, to hear that from you and how you're coping is awesome. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Welcome, no problem.
I also understand that you gave us your Outlook account. I'm wondering if he was able to put that in the chat.
I can type that.
Would you mind, if that's okay? That'd be great.
That's fine.
For fear that I might miss a letter.
That's okay. Outlook.com. So I actually was really proud of myself. One of the things I was proud of was being part of the Pivot project in Canada, which essentially was trying to gather data from major cities across Canada from youth, specifically youth by youth. And we gathered a lot of like what youth in Toronto are looking for post-COVID. And a lot of it has to do with like employability and like sustainable living. So part of that is just, again, with trying to connect to the community. And as somebody who was a part of the team, we made like the Toronto Youth Resource Guide. I had certain sections of it, and it was quite extensive for the sections in which I made. But if anyone is looking for me to make another similar project, let me know. Like, I love doing these things. I love helping people connect to what they may not know is out there. So I might actually share that in the chat if I can find the file as well.
Thank you.
No problem.
I think that is sort of, if they're, take a look in the Q&A. I think we got through a number of the questions, and wondering if I can bring Marvin in to help. All right. Not quite used to doing these types of things, so I'm not quite sure what to do next.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that. And thank you, Alex. I wrote down, coloring to get away from the Zoom fatigue. And after 3 days of our Pride events, I think we would all love to color. But with that, I will hand it to Jen and Chris to wrap our session up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, Alex. Lovely to have you back. Alex has spoken for us a few times for Trans Day of Remembrance.
Yes.
So we're very happy to see them again. Thank you so much. Always a delight to hear you speak. And thank you, Karen, for facilitation of that. And yeah, we are going to wrap up, but we do want to tell you about what's happening for the rest of the week. So
and maybe we'll just thank Megan and our representative from UCO one more time also, and all of our introducers and speakers today. Thank you all. And Marvin, thank you.
Absolutely. And our 2 ASL interpreters.
Yes.
So appreciative of. Thank you so much. So Jen, actually Mark just posted something about the art therapy session today. Do you want to start with that? And then I'll talk
Absolutely.
about other things.
And we want to thank the Center for Sexual Violence Response Support and Education for supporting this event so integrally. And in association with that, they've been running Pride support groups all this week to support folks with this. On Monday, we had Finding Positive Spaces to Celebrate, the Pride edition that ran from 2 to 3 after this event. On Tuesday, we had the Creating Your Own LGBTQ2S+ Self-Care Kit, the Pride edition. Today, from 2 to 3 at the center will be Art Therapy with Lacey, the Pride edition. That sounds great. And tomorrow we'll have Mindfulness Meditation, the Pride edition, from 2 to 3 after the event. Back to you, Chris.
Like news reporters. The weather is kind of cold today, but it's beautiful. Alex just posted the Pivot Toronto Youth Resource file, the website for the file in the chat in case people want to access that. We also wanted to end by telling people what's happening Thursday and Friday. So all day this week, probably people already know this who are here, but we're having events running from 11:30 until 1-ish, as you can tell. And today it was 11:30-ish until 1-ish. So sorry about that for people who were waiting. But we have tomorrow, we have Lucayo Estrella and Cassandra Myers presenting, and you can look them up, but they both do a lot of different things, including spoken word poetry, and are going to be talking about their work. And on Friday we have Kusha Dadoy and Mocha Dawkins coming to speak and wrap things up, and Elder Blue Waters will also be giving the closing ceremony after they had opened things for us on Monday. So we always love having any kind of contact with Blue as well. So that's wonderful as well. Yeah. So thank you everybody for everything you're doing to make this all possible. Hope to see some of you tomorrow and Friday, and please check out the self-care events that the support events that the center is putting on as well. Thank you so much.
And thank you for everyone's commitment to this event, and for folks who've been speaking and for whom it is dangerous and important. We thank you very much.
Yes,
we thank you very much, and we thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, actually, one last thing. These events are actually being posted on York's Pride website fairly quickly after they're finished. So if you did miss Monday or Tuesday, you can go there right now and see them already. And I anticipate that this one will probably be up by the end of the day, if the last few days are any indication. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Happy Pride.
Pride.